Imagine discovering time travel exists tomorrow, only to learn it's locked behind more rules than a billionaire's prenup. Welcome to What If Horizons, where we explore impossible scenarios with terrifying plausibility. The first shock: the paperwork. Applying for a temporal visa requires more documentation than proving you didn't steal the Mona Lisa. You'll need sworn affidavits from every ancestor confirming you won't prevent their births, a notarized promise not to kill Hitler, 2 obvious and 3 character references, one must be from a historian. The Temporal Oversight Bureau employs more agents than the IRS. These aren't your fun Doctor Who types. Picture DMV workers with time guns. Their sole job: preventing butterfly effect incidents. Accidentally step on a Cretaceous period ant. That's 5 years in temporal lockdown. Their motto: the timeline stays clean. Approved destinations resemble a bargain bin history tour. Want to see dinosaurs? Denied. Too risky. Renaissance Italy. Fully booked until 2187. Your options: mostly watching paint dry in 1923 or attending the world's most boring town hall meeting in 1802. The equipment makes airplane toilets seem spacious. Time pods fit exactly one average-sized human, no winter coats, and come with more disclaimers than a parachute packed by interns. The waiver includes phrases like, may cause existential paradoxes, and, not responsible for accidental grandfathering. Cost would make a Wall Street banker blush. A 5-minute jaunt to last Tuesday runs about $250,000 plus mandatory temporal insurance at $10,000 per millisecond overstay. Payment plans available. APR starts at 35%. Security screenings make TSA look relaxed. You'll be cavity searched for anachronistic items while a historian quizzes you. Name 3 18th century appropriate greetings that won't get you burned as a witch. Forget your phone. They'll find that Nokia 3310 hidden in your sock. The dress code: painfully accurate period attire verified by 3 costume historians. That polyester blend in your underwear. Straight to jail. 1 poor soul got detained for wearing machine-stitched socks to 1692. The Salem trials were more forgiving. But here's the kicker: you can't change anything. Every action gets reviewed by the Timeline Integrity Committee. Save a child from drowning in 1912. Denied. Might affect future swimming pool regulations. Leave a penny somewhere. That's a violation. The only approved activity: observing while standing perfectly still. Worst of all, the reviews. Come back with even slightly altered memories and you'll spend weeks in debriefing while lawyers argue whether you owe temporal taxes. One guy got billed for unapproved nostalgia after remembering his grandmother differently. Yet somehow, people still queue for this. Because nothing's more human than paying a fortune to sit in a metal tube just to say you did it. The training program makes Navy SEAL Hell Week look like preschool nap time. Before touching a time machine, you'll endure 18 months of Temporal Etiquette Academy. Fail to bow correctly to a 12th century peasant. That's 500 hours of medieval courtesy drills. Pronounce thee and thou with a modern accent. Enjoy repeating Shakespearean insults until your tongue bleeds. The equipment orientation alone takes 6 weeks. That big red button: not for emergencies. It's the I accept all legal liability switch. The seatbelts have more straps than a BDSM convention, and the manual includes cheerful warnings like, may experience simultaneous existence in multiple centuries. Actual time jumps operate on bureaucracy standard time. Your approved 15-minute visit to 1889 requires 1. Pre-jump medical screening checking for any future knowledge rashes. 2. Epic appropriate language verification. 3. Last-minute waiver updates, Section 37B. Acknowledgement that the past smelled worse than you imagined. The observer only rule gets enforced by temporal chaperones, humorless history professors with shock collars. Flinch toward a historical artifact. Zap. Make eye contact with someone famous. Zap. Try to whisper stock tips to your younger self. Straight to temporal jail, where they only show the movie Groundhog Day. On loop. Forever. Health precautions border on absurd. You'll get vaccinated for diseases that haven't existed for centuries, then doused in period-accurate perfume to cover your suspiciously clean 21st century smell. The hygiene briefing includes gems like, yes, they really wiped with that, and no, you can't bring Purell. Food restrictions would starve a pigeon. Pack anything with preservatives. Confiscated. Bring period inappropriate snacks. The 1348 peasants might burn you as a witch when they see your granola bar. Your meal options. Whatever gruel the locals are eating, or the protein paste from your emergency kit that tastes like regret. The return process involves more decontamination than a zombie outbreak. They'll scrub you, quarantine you, and interrogate you about every second. Forget something you saw. That's a week in the memory jogging chair. Remember too much. Enjoy having your recollections adjusted by guys in lab coats who definitely didn't read the consent form. And the souvenirs. Pathetic. No selfies, obviously, no artifacts. That's temporal theft. Just a lousy certificate saying, I visited the past and all I got was this lousy temporal awareness. Some try smuggling back pebbles or leaves, until the 300% timeline tax kicks in. Yet the worst part, the disappointment when you realize historical figures were mostly shorter, smellier, and less impressive in person. That romantic vision of knights in shining armor. Turns out they mostly scratched their armor and complained about chafing. The Temporal Revenue Service makes the IRS look like charity workers. That quick trip to see the pyramids comes with taxes so convoluted even Einstein would get a headache. First there's the basic chronology levy, 10% per century, then the paradox surcharge, 25% if you might theoretically meet yourself, and don't forget the historical preservation fee, because someone has to pay for all those do not touch signs in medieval times. Attempting to cheat the system leads to hilariously cruel punishments. Get caught sneaking an extra minute in Victorian London. Enjoy your new full-time job as a human clock tower in 1346. Try to smuggle back a Renaissance painting. Congratulations, you're now the official portrait cleaner for every museum in the timeline, with a toothbrush. The black market thrives on stupidly simple hacks. Clever travelers realize you don't need to time travel to profit. Just memorize a few lottery numbers and sports scores before departure. Until the Bureau catches on and installs memory dampeners at all return points. Now you come back vaguely remembering you wanted to bet on something, but was it a horse or a cockroach race? Rich folks hire time proxies, poor college history majors paid to endure the restrictions for them. Want to know what your great-great-grandmother was really like? Some undergrad will go find out, then describe it to you while you sip martinis in your non-time taxable present. The proxies unionized last year, demanding hazard pay for surviving the Black Death and extra for dealing with Shakespeare's ego. Middle-class time tourism involves grueling package deals. The French Revolution experience means standing 300 yards from the action behind 3 layers of safety barriers. The dinosaurs tour just shows you fossils in a museum while a hologram plays roaring sounds. The disclaimer says, may contain up to 0.3% actual time travel. Meanwhile, governments weaponize time bureaucracy. Miss your tax payment, they'll send collectors to bug your ancestors. Political dissidents get sentenced to temporal community service, fixing continuity errors in boring historical periods. One whistleblower spent 6 months making sure every candle in 1702 stayed period appropriate. Scientists rage against the restrictions. That groundbreaking, observe the Big Bang, proposal, denied for being too flashy. The document every moment of Beethoven's life project, approved, but only if they use quill pens and don't make eye contact. Most research now focuses on answering humanity's pressing questions, like, how did people really use chamber pots? And, why did anyone think powdered wigs were a good idea? Religious groups splinter over the implications. Some claim time travel proves predestination, the Bureau's records are eerily accurate. Others insist free will is dead because the timeline police prevent changes. A cult worshipping the Great Permitting Office gains millions of followers before being shut down for not filing proper 501(c)(3) paperwork across 7 centuries. The only people truly happy. Insurance companies. Temporal policies cover everything from accidentally becoming your own grandfather to getting stuck in a time loop of corporate training videos. Premiums cost more than the time trips themselves, but hey, at least someone's profiting off this mess. The Temporal Violations Department has more branches than Starbucks. Get caught jaywalking in 1923. That's a temporal misdemeanor. Accidentally introduce the fist bump to 18th century France. Straight to chrono jail. The punishment fits the crime in the most petty ways possible. Leave a plastic bottle in ancient Rome. Enjoy hand-carving 10,000 clay amphoras as replacements. A thriving underground market caters to rule breakers with more money than sense. For the right price, black market time smugglers will sneak you into restricted eras. Their methods aren't subtle. One guy got caught hiding in a shipment of authentic reproduction Viking helmets. Another tried passing himself off as a traveling plague doctor, forgetting that the beak masks weren't actually period accurate until later. The wealthy hire time janitors, disposable employees who clean up their temporal messes. Spill coffee on a Renaissance tapestry. A janitor will go back and carefully replicate the stain with period-appropriate materials. Get famous by predicting historical events. A team works around the clock planting subtle hints so it looks like you just did good research. Language police patrol popular eras, listening for anachronisms. Say, cool, in 1950. That's a fine. Drop a, literally, in Victorian England. Prepare for grammar re-education in a 14th century monastery. The worst offenders get sentenced to time loops of grammar lessons. One executive spent what felt like eternity learning to properly conjugate Old English verbs after yelling, "You guys," at Benjamin Franklin. An entire legal specialty emerges for temporal divorces. Turns out relationships get complicated when one partner can visit the other's embarrassing childhood moments. The messiest cases involve retroactive prenups and disputes over whether great-great-grandparents' marriages were properly documented. One couple spent millions fighting over whether their 12th century ancestors' cow-counting mistake constituted fraud. Celebrities face special restrictions. Famous faces can't visit any era where they might be recognized, which for some means staying out of the entire 20th century. The paparazzi of 2,147 pay top dollar for grainy shots of 21st century stars struggling with chamber pots. A-list actors now hire period doubles, historians who vaguely resemble them and will attend boring historical events in their place. The most brazen violators become time graffiti artists, leaving subtle marks across history. One left a tiny Kilroy was here, inside the Great Pyramid. Another seeded conspiracy theories by carving modern equations into medieval church walls. The Bureau now employs art historians just to spot these temporal tags before they cause paradoxes. Ironically, the strict rules create new problems. Officials waste so time preventing minor changes that major historical mysteries remain unsolved. Want to know who really built Stonehenge? Too risky to investigate. Curious about Cleopatra's true appearance? The makeup analysis alone could violate 17 temporal statutes. The only unquestioned success, the Bureau's cafeteria. With access to every culinary era, they serve everything from authentic dinosaur omelets to 25th century synthetic protein. Employees joke it's the real reason the system stays in place. No one wants to lose the best lunch options in the space-time continuum. After decades of tight temporal control, unintended consequences start unraveling the fabric of reality in ways no bureaucrat anticipated. The first sign something's wrong. Historians notice small details changing in old photographs. Winston Churchill suddenly has 3 hands in that famous portrait. The Titanic now clearly shows a Starbucks on deck, and the moon landing footage features an astronaut holding a "wish you were here" sign. The Bureau blames time bleeds, unauthorized changes leaking through the cracks of overregulated timelines. Their solution: more regulations. Naturally, new policies require all time travelers to carry chronostabilizers, bulky devices that supposedly prevent reality fluctuations but mostly just give users a constant low-level electric shock. The manual cheerfully states this is a feature, not a bug. An underground movement of time anarchists emerges, arguing the restrictions cause more damage than they prevent. Their experiments prove disturbing. When prevented from making small changes, time seems to compensate with massive, unpredictable shifts. Stop someone from spilling coffee in 1955. Suddenly disco never happens and everyone wears Victorian swimsuits to the beach in the 1980s. The entertainment industry collapses under temporal copyright laws. Every period drama gets sued by descendants of historical figures claiming inaccurate portrayals. A Shakespeare reboot gets cancelled when 17th century lawyers prove the bard would have hated musical numbers. Reality TV devolves into shows like Real Housewives of the Cretaceous Period and Keeping Up with the Carolingians. Odd new professions emerge. Paradox mediators, therapists for people who met their future selves. Time notaries, witnesses for historical events no one believed happened. Chrono deodorant testers, because apparently the past really did smell that bad. Scientists discover the restrictions created. Time deserts, periods no one visits that have started fading from existence. The entire 17th century is now just a vague collection of half-remembered paintings and one very confused-looking king. The Bureau's solution: mandatory time tourism quotas to under-visited eras. Now you can get tax breaks for spending your vacation watching paint dry in 1632. The most disturbing development: children born after heavy time regulation exhibit strange traits. Some remember events that never happened, others instinctively know obsolete skills like candle making. Researchers call it temporal drift, but everyone else just calls it creepy. The Bureau responds by requiring time purity tests for newborns, checking for any anomalous historical knowledge. Ironically, the only people thriving are conspiracy theorists. With reality becoming increasingly unstable, every wild theory now has some grain of truth. Flat earthists, ufologists, and even people who think birds aren't real gain followers by pointing to obvious timeline glitches. The Bureau's attempts to debunk them only make things worse. Their official statement that there is no parallel universe where dinosaurs developed smartphones somehow created 3 new conflicting timelines. The final straw comes when archaeologists start finding modern objects in ancient ruins, not from time travelers, but from reality itself glitching. A Roman mosaic depicts the Bureau's headquarters. A Viking runestone bears the Wi-Fi symbol. A cave painting shows stick figures scrolling on phones. The timeline isn't just bleeding, it's hemorrhaging. Yet the Bureau's response remains quintessentially bureaucratic: more paperwork. New forms include the Reality Variance Acknowledgement and Paradox Intake Questionnaire. Employees work overtime stamping approved on existence itself. Because if there's one universal constant, it's that red tape survives even the collapse of time. The Great Temporal Collapse begins not with a bang, but with a misplaced decimal point on Form T 2298B. A junior clerk accidentally approves 12 million simultaneous time jumps instead of 12. The resulting chaos makes the Black Plague look like a slow Tuesday. First to go are the historical celebrities. Abraham Lincoln gets spotted at a Miami nightclub. Cleopatra starts live-streaming unboxing videos. A very confused Napoleon keeps appearing at military strategy conventions, insisting, "This has never happened before," every time someone mentions Waterloo. The Bureau's response is characteristically tone-deaf. They issue updated guidelines stating all unauthorized historical figures must 1. Complete identity verification. 2. Pay back temporal taxes. 3. Attend mandatory era reorientation classes. Language becomes the next casualty. As past and present tenses collide, verbs have existential crises. The word is files for bankruptcy. Grammar Nazis from 1942 form an uneasy alliance with Twitter trolls from 2025 to combat the rise of chrono-illiteracy. Their manifesto contains 7 different verb tenses, none of them correct. The food industry implodes spectacularly. Medieval peasants start demanding avocado toast. Roman soldiers get addicted to energy drinks. A particularly enterprising caveman opens the first Paleolithic fusion restaurant, serving mastodon tartar with molecular gastronomy techniques he definitely shouldn't know. Health inspectors give up when they realize the expiration dates keep changing before their eyes. Religions scramble to update their doctrines. The Second Coming happens 17 times in 1 week. Buddha gets stuck in an infinite reincarnation loop at JFK Airport. Scientologists quietly delete all references to space opera when actual space opera becomes nightly news. Science fairs become literal nightmares. A 7th grader's volcano project accidentally recreates Pompeii. Another kid builds a working time machine from a potato battery and glitter glue, only to have it confiscated by temporal CPS for reckless causality violations. The legal system devolves into pure theater. Cases now cite laws that won't be written for centuries. Jurors include clones of their own great-grandchildren. One trial features the prosecutor, defendant, and judge all being the same person at different ages, constantly objecting to their own objections. Economics enters the realm of pure abstraction. The stock market now tracks companies that won't exist for 300 years. Cryptocurrency enthusiasts pivot to Timecoin, which somehow both always existed and never will. A loaf of bread costs $3, or possibly 3 Roman sesterces, the register can't decide. Art becomes dangerous. A museum exhibit of Chronocubist paintings gives viewers temporary time dysphoria. Bands play concerts where each member is from a different decade. Shakespeare's newly discovered lost play turns out to be just the script for B-movie with quill pen corrections. Through it all, the Bureau keeps filing paperwork. Their final memo before the system completely fails reads, "Despite reality ceasing to function in any meaningful way, please remember to submit your quarterly temporal impact reports by Friday. Or possibly last Wednesday. We'll get back to you on that." The Bureau's final desperate attempt to restore order involves deploying chronoparamedics, teams of historians and quantum physicists armed with reality staplers and causality glue. Their mission? Stitch the timeline back together before existence unravels completely. The results are about as effective as using band-aids on a black hole. First strategy: historical reenactors. Thousands are sent to key moments to perform history correctly. This works until the Battle of Waterloo gets taken over by method actors who refuse to break character. Napoleon's last stand now includes a dramatic monologue about his feelings and a 15-minute intermission. Next plan: memory realignment. The Bureau develops mnemonic bombs that erase unauthorized time knowledge from populations. Unfortunately, the side effects include half of London suddenly forgetting how pants work and the entire Renaissance being remembered as a particularly vivid cooking show. The education system collapses under temporal whiplash. Textbooks now come with living updates, pages that rewrite themselves mid-lecture. Teachers struggle when students cite sources that won't exist for centuries. A high school history exam question about the causes of World War I receives one answer that simply says, "Ask your future self." Cultural norms become hopelessly tangled. Victorian manners collide with 1960s radicalism and 23rd century post-gender norms. First dates now involve elaborate courtship rituals, free love experimentation, and negotiating which timeline's social rules apply. The divorce rate hits 300% before anyone agrees on how to calculate it. Scientific progress grinds to a halt when researchers realize all their experiments were contaminated by future knowledge. The entire field of physics has to start over when someone finds a sticky note reading, "Gravity is just a suggestion," in Newton's original papers. The scientific method now includes, check if this discovery was already made tomorrow. Religious institutions face unprecedented challenges. Churches now hold services for multiple messiahs simultaneously. The Vatican launches a help desk for time-displaced saints. A Buddhist monk achieves enlightenment in all possible timelines simultaneously and immediately quits to become a bartender in 1980s New York. The entertainment industry adapts in bizarre ways. Movies now premiere in random centuries. A summer blockbuster about the American Revolution debuts in ancient Rome to mixed reviews. Shakespeare's new play, iPhone, the musical, baffles Elizabethan audiences but kills in 2014. Healthcare becomes a nightmare. Doctors must now diagnose diseases patients haven't contracted yet and treat conditions that no longer exist. The Hippocratic Oath gets amended to include, first, check what year it is for the patient. A single hospital visit might involve leeches, nanobots, and psychic surgery, sometimes all at once. As reality's decay accelerates, ordinary people develop strange coping mechanisms. Some start wearing clothing from multiple eras simultaneously, togas with fanny packs, powdered wigs with VR headsets. Others communicate entirely in memes from conflicting timelines. A new greeting emerges. "What time you from?" Answered with, "Yes." The Bureau's final act before dissolving, issuing one last regulation. All temporal violations are hereby forgiven. Also, none of this ever happened. Probably. We'll send a memo to clarify once we figure out when we are. 5 years after the collapse, humanity finally stops screaming and starts adapting to the new temporal normal. The first sign of progress. Someone invents a calendar that doesn't cause existential dread. It has 38 months, each named Wednesday. The black market thrives on temporal tourism 2.0. Want to visit a specific year? Tough luck. But for the right price, smugglers will drop you somewhere in the general vicinity of your desired century. The reviews are mixed. Got Renaissance Florence but with inexplicable neon signage. Asked for Jurassic. Got a very convincing dinosaur theme park from 2156. A new profession emerges: time janitors. Their job: cleaning up temporal anomalies before they cause more paradoxes. Most work involves returning confused historical figures to their proper eras, scrubbing futuristic graffiti off ancient monuments, explaining smartphones to medieval peasants again. The education system reinvents itself. History classes now focus on probably happened events. Science teaches multiple conflicting theories simultaneously. Math problems include variables like x equals whatever number hasn't been invented yet. Surprisingly, test scores improve. Dating becomes gloriously chaotic. Background checks now include past and future relationships. The new pickup line: what's your temporal coefficient? Marriage vows include for all your past, present, and future selves. Divorce lawyers charge extra for timeline entangling services. Businesses adapt in creative ways. Restaurants serve chronofusion cuisine, whatever ingredients time jumped into the kitchen that morning. Fashion trends last approximately 17 minutes before being replaced by styles from alternate timelines. The stock market now trades in potential futures. Governments establish the Department of Temporal Ambiguity. Their official stance: we're reasonably certain today is happening. Their actual work involves maintaining a list of events that mostly occurred, issuing temporal visas with expiration dates that may or may not have passed, politely ignoring the fact that some citizens exist in multiple places at once. Art enters a golden age of creative confusion. Museums display found art from collapsed timelines. A popular exhibit features cave paintings of rocket ships next to 31st century holograms of woolly mammoths. The hottest new music genre: chrono hop, beats sampled from different centuries. Surprisingly, mental health improves. With reality permanently flexible, people stop stressing about small things. That work deadline might already have passed in another timeline. Embarrassing childhood memories possibly never happened. Existential dread gets replaced with temporal curiosity. The final irony: humanity develops actual time travel technology just as everyone loses interest. The breakthrough comes when a scientist stops trying to control time and instead asks politely. The timeline, exhausted from all the drama, finally cooperates. 10 years post-collapse, society settles into a comfortable rhythm of organized chaos. The new temporal accord simply states: don't be a dick to past, future versions of yourself. Surprisingly, this works better than all previous regulations combined. The Bureau reopens as the Department of Temporal Suggestions. Their new headquarters exists simultaneously in 12 centuries, which makes meetings interesting but cuts commute times to zero. Employees wear "When am I?" badges that update in real time. The break room serves coffee from all of human history, though most avoid the 17th century blend too many grounds. Education evolves to embrace temporal flexibility. Schools teach possibility literacy alongside reading and math. History exams give extra credit for creative timelines. One student's essay on "What if Rome never fell but also did" wins a Pulitzer in 2157. Science fairs feature projects like building a volcano your grandfather might remember. The justice system adopts temporal restorative practices. Instead of prison, offenders must 1. Apologize to all affected timeline versions of their victim. 2. Undo at least 3 future crimes they haven't committed yet. 3. Serve jury duty in a random century. Surprisingly, recidivism drops to negative numbers. Healthcare breakthroughs emerge from timeline cross-pollination. Medieval herbal remedies combine with 23rd century nanotech to create medicines that work, probably well enough. Doctors now prescribe temporal rest and chrono-balanced diets. The side effects are bizarre but entertaining. One cold medicine makes patients speak perfect Middle English for exactly 48 hours. The arts flourish in unexpected ways. A Broadway musical about the collapse wins Tonys in 6 different decades simultaneously. Museums display temporally ambiguous works. Is that an authentic Renaissance painting or an excellent 1990s forgery? Curators shrug. Does it spark joy? Businesses thrive on temporal flexibility. The hottest startup, a service that lets you outsource regrets to alternate timeline versions of yourself. Another company sells time diversified investments. Your portfolio includes cave paintings, tulip bulbs, and Bitcoin from 3 different crashes. Religion becomes refreshingly humble. Churches, temples and mosques add disclaimers, all beliefs subject to temporal verification. The Dalai Lama's Twitter, now hosted on 18th century pamphlets, reads, "Maybe. Or not." Reality is complicated. An unexpected side effect emerges. Time tourism becomes boring. When everywhere is accessible, no place is special. The hottest vacation, staying home in your own timeline. Travel agencies pivot to offering ignorance experiences, temporary memory wipes so you can rediscover normalcy. The final breakthrough comes when scientists realize the collapse never actually happened, it was always part of the timeline. This explains everything and nothing simultaneously. The Department of Temporal Suggestions responds by issuing their final memo, "Carry on." Probably 20 years after the collapse, humanity finally achieves temporal equilibrium, not through control, but through collective exhaustion. The new golden rule emerges. Time moves forward, except when it doesn't, and that's fine. The Department of Temporal Suggestions quietly rebrands as the Ministry of Not Making Things Worse. Their entire staff consists of 1 part-time philosopher and 3 therapy dogs. Their official handbook fits on a post-it: try to be nice to past and future versions of yourself. Snacks are in the drawer that may or may not exist yet. Cities develop. Time zones, in the original sense, neighborhoods where particular eras feel most comfortable. Downtown becomes a vibrant mix of steam engines and hoverboards. Suburbs favor nostalgic 20th century aesthetics with 23rd century plumbing. No one questions the logic, they're just happy the Wi-Fi sort of works again. Families expand across timelines in beautiful chaos. Thanksgiving dinners include ancestors and descendants who theoretically shouldn't coexist. The turkey is always overcooked in at least 2 realities. Children write letters to their future selves that arrive before the ink dries. Grandparents give advice that won't be relevant for decades but somehow helps immediately. Work evolves beyond linear constraints. Careers become time gardens, planted in one era, flowering in another. The 40-hour workweek is replaced by enough hours to feel productive but not so many you forget to exist. Retirement means choosing your favorite timeline and staying there until further notice. Art achieves its ultimate form, the living masterpiece that evolves with each viewer's temporal perspective. The Mona Lisa now smiles differently depending on when you look. Beethoven's unfinished symphony gets completed by a chorus of composers across 5 centuries. A street artist's mural changes daily, though no one ever sees it being painted. Science embraces beautiful uncertainty. Physics equations now include temporal correction factors that mostly cancel out. Medical breakthroughs happen when someone rediscovers forgotten cures from collapsed timelines. Space exploration continues, with the comforting knowledge that Mars might already be colonized in some version of reality. The final paradox: humanity stops obsessing over time altogether. Watches become decorative. Calendars are suggestions. Punctuality means showing up in the general vicinity of when things might happen. And somehow, against all logic, everything works out fine. Because here's the secret we finally learned: time was never the enemy. Control was. And in letting go, we found all the time we needed. If this timeline hasn't collapsed yet, do us a solid. 1. Yell, subscribe, at your nearest temporal anomaly. 2. Carve a like into any available century. 3. Argue about paradoxes with a stranger, bonus points if they're your past self. This has been What If Horizons, where we break reality so you don't have to. Until next time, whenever that is, keep wondering, and maybe don't touch that mysterious glowing button.